Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. Today we are going to do an illustration tutorial of this piece that I have for you guys today. I'm just going to be telling you guys what brushes I use, how I color it in, how I draw, how I shade, and some more tips and tricks that might be helpful. So the canvas size I typically use for my Procreate designs is 3000 pixels by 3700 pixels. I just like it to be clear that way. When I'm finished with the artwork, what I'll typically do is color, right? And I'm going to bust out my shadow brush, which is my soft brush. And this is a brush that's already included in Procreate. You don't gotta buy nothing. So what I do is I just, what is it called? I just increase the size of the brush and then I lower the opacity. So when I'm about to paint, I create a clipping mask, and you just slide over, create clipping mask. I'm gonna name it shadows, and then I'm gonna name another one highlights, and then another one lash. smaller for the nose. And if you find it hard to blend, I also use the smudge tool, and just make sure that the soft brush is also down towards the beginning or even in the middle, so that the skin tones and any other clothing is reflected, like it goes with the background. So now I'm just repeating the same process all over again with her face. The shadows where you want the shadows to be, or wherever you see the shadows in your reference photo. For the clothing, I just do the same process. I use the script brush to outline the clothes, and then I use the color fill, just drag and drop it in. So here I'm just outlining the braids, and then I'm using a lower opacity on this layer just because I don't want to get it confused with the color of the pencil. I still want to be able to see it. So I just lower the opacity, and then when I'm done, I'll lift it back up again. I'm finishing up her lips. I wanted to get the shirt and stuff done just so that I know her lip color can go with her skin as well as her clothes. And for the teeth, I always try to use an off-white color instead of bright white because sometimes it can be too dramatic or just take the attention away. Like, we don't need her shiny teeth taking all the attention. And I create a new layer when I'm adding the highlights and shadows within the neck, and then I just erase it when it overshadows the top layer because I don't know, that's just me. It's kind of like I don't want my food to touch thing. I want them to be close. So now I am doing the beads, and what I'm doing is just using the same color for all the beads, and then I'm just going to use a clipping layer to color in each new individual one, just so that I'm not using like for blue, yellow, or green for each individual bead. I'd rather just color them all and then create a clipping layer for it. As you can see, it is a real struggle drawing braids sometimes, just because like the dynamics of it get messy sometimes, but it's always cute. It be taking time, but it be cute. So I'm filling in the beads and stuff now. I'm doing the same pattern for each one. And I believe I did the shadows off screen as well because I didn't want my big head in the way, and I got real close to the screen and I'm not wearing hijab, so it was messy, but yeah. So this is how I do highlights and shadows on just objects in my drawings that aren't faces or people. So as you can see here, you'll see the shadows already done on the beads. What I do is I have a base layer, which would be like the beads. Then I add a clipping mask. And what I use is purple. It can be any purple. And I basically just draw over it. It doesn't matter like where it is, because basically when you lower the opacity and then you drag it all the way down to luminosity, it'll just blend in with the colors that you already have set. And I like doing this opposed to getting a dark pink, a dark green, and dark yellow, because it can get tedious. And you might be able to use black or whatever color, but it just makes the values consistent. And when you want it to be lighter, you just go to a lighter purple, even lighter purple, or even white. And this is what I've been doing for a while, and this just works for me. I'm gonna delete that and go back to the regular one. And as you can see, I used the lightest color to, you know, add some shine to the beads on the edges. I'm gonna make that a group and just rename it and separate it. So for the hair, because the color is the same as the sketch, I'm going to actually invert it so that it's lighter and I can see what I'm doing. You could also change the color of the sketch, but then the color of the sketch is going to mess with the rest of the face, and I don't want to draw around that. So what I'm using is actually a part of this brush set that I got. I'm going to link that down below, and it's so helpful. It has twists, it has braids, it even has like different textures and stuff. It's amazing. I love it. It makes stuff so much easier. But what I'm basically doing is I'm going like every other braid in one layer, and then I'm going to do the other braids in another layer. And this is just so that when they overlap, they're separated and I can lower the opacity and erase it. For example, I'm going to lower this opacity some, and I'm just going to erase where it's overlapping and where it looks ugly, opposed to drawing them all together and then we have a real situation on our hands. So I inverted it back, And now I'm just adding a few shadows with my soft brush into some of the twists. Just to give it more depth, I also blurred the lining of the twist some, just because her hair is already dark brown and I still want it to show. I'm using the script brush just to add some liner to their eyes under the hair layer so that it focused. But that's pretty much it. And that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, if this was helpful for you, let me know in the comments if there's any other videos that we should do. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.